Hello, my name is Zach Gibbs, and I'm a content developer within education services inside Juniper Networks. And today we will be going through the Paragon Active Assurance Path Trace Test Learning Byte. All right, so here is our example. And here with the example, we have a topology. So let's discuss the topology. We have a few different devices. We have TA1 that connects into the management network using ETH0. And that gives it connectivity with the control center through the management network. And then TA1 connects to the service provider core using ETH1. And then we have host 1, which also connects into the service provider core at the 172.29.6.100 address. All right, so with that, what do we want to do? We need to configure a path trace test, and we're going to have a duration of 120 seconds. And then we want to trace a path from TA1 to host 1. We're going to use 10 packets per second, and we're going to have an erred second threshold of 0% loss. And then we'll run the test, examine the results, and make changes in the service provider core to see what happens when we do that. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump to the web interface for the control center and get this going. All right, so here is the dashboard for Paragon Active Assurance Control Center web interface. And so let's go ahead and go to the tests and create a new test sequence. And let's call this Path Trace LB for Learning Bytes. And then we need to select the correct category. And the default category of TCP UDP performance doesn't have anything that looks like a path trace. And path trace tests are actually under the reflector-based category. So we select the reflector-based category, and we see path trace here. We see this task for path trace, and we can see here it says test and visualize the path to a host using ICMP or UDP. We have the options for configuring the path trace, and we want to set this to 120 seconds. And then if we go down, we need to select the client, and the client is where we're going to be starting the path trace from. And here we're going to select TA1 ETH1, and then the host itself is going to be the 172.29.6.100 address. And this could be something within the service provider network, or this could be something just way out there on the internet. We set the rate to 10 packets per second, and the threshold for error seconds by default sets to 0% loss. So we're good there. So let's go ahead and start the test and see what happens. All right, so the test has been started, and it should just be a little bit before we start collecting data. You can see here in the error seconds bar that we have no error seconds. That means we are not getting any sort of traffic loss. And then down here, we'll see a picture of the hops show up. And yep, there they are. So we can hover over each hop and see the information. First hop, second hop, we can see the delay and things like that. Last hop, and then the final destination. So I'm going to make a quick change in the service provider core, and we'll see what happens when we do that. And so it should just take a second, but what we'll see is an alternate path being taken. And just give that just a few more seconds, and things are reconverging in the service provider network. So just take a little bit longer. And there we have it. We can see a new path has been taken. And we can see here that we have our first hop, that's the same, but then it changes and goes to a different hop and different path altogether. The parameters and statistics of each hop and the delay, the loss, and things like that, but we're getting no loss. And then we get to the final destination. So that works really good. Now notice how we do have the first path still there, but it shows in a light gray, which means that this is a previous path. So each of the paths that you have that are previous paths, it'll show up here as well in light gray. Now what we can do here is we can select that previous path, and we can see here, okay, this is the path that was taken. This is the time that it happened. And then we can select that second path again. And we can see here the time that it happened. And we can select the individual routes here. First hop is selected by default. And you can see here that the path trace has shown that a different hop is being taken in the network with that traffic. And that wraps up the test. And the test will end here in just a second. And the test is done. And you can see here with the error seconds that we had no errors. And we can select results list, and we can get information about the individual hops, and we can select the different routes that show the individual hops. That is the reroute events. And we can hover over and select individual hops to get more information about them as far as the delay and error seconds and whatnot. And so that is very useful to find out what is happening on a per hop basis. So this is much more than your simple trace route because you can see what is actually going on. And notice how in the error seconds for these hops here that we have no information for this part. That's okay because this route was not being taken for this part of the test and it switched over at that point. So you can see that in the actual results itself. So that does bring us to the end of this Learning Byte. In this Learning Byte, we demonstrated how to configure and run a path trace test. So as always, thanks for watching.
Visit the Juniper Education Services website to learn more about courses. View our full range of classroom, online, and e-learning courses. Learning paths, industry segment and technology-specific training paths. Juniper Network's certification program, the ultimate demonstration of your competence. And the training community, from forums to social media. Join the discussion.